what have you not. Right, okay. I don't think you can see me because I don't think you're actually logged in. Hold on a second. Participants, attendees. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I've got John Galloway and Graham Taylor. But yeah, you've not actually there. Let me rephrase that. I will. Just by the way. Cool. Recording this. Yeah, there we go. We're recording. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's kick off. So if you want to ask questions, I will try and get to the questions if you're watching this on Facebook, but I did say if you've registered, you've got a question, I'd rather see those easier because, you know, I'm doing two things at once. The only thing I can do two things at once is a pina colada and a glass of rosé. But
good for you, David.
This one's actually non-alcoholic, and it is. That one is non-alcoholic. So the way we're going to do this tonight, everybody who's tuned in, is first of all we've got a very, very special guest that is not John Sheridan. He's very special. And when John gets talking, he doesn't stop. No, when John gets talking, he's going to go through a bit about the part 3 and what have you not. And if you've got questions at any time, please whack them up on here on the chat box or on the question thingy on the webinar tools, and I'll try and get to those questions and I'll try and interject as I can. Now, a lot of you all know I'm not an ADI, so I'm going to do my best here to understand terminology. I'll give it a good go. You know, I've known you lot for 9 years now, so if I don't know what we're talking about tonight, I really ought to be shocked. But I need to make a big introduction to one of the nicest guys in the industry, and most of you don't know him yet, but you will do. His name is John Galloway, and tonight he's here to talk about a wonderful, wonderful charity called Speed of Sight, who the Driving Instructors Business Summit support. We give, when we do our summit in January, all the ticket sales or the trade stand sales, all that money goes directly into their PayPal account. And we're able to do that because Tina Jansen Cadella and the sponsored the whole event. She sponsored the webinars and everything, so all the costs are taken care of. And Tina, my business partner on the ADI business, on the Driving Instructors Business Summit, has done that. And it means that on a Sunday night, we can have John Galloway to tell us about something very, very special that all driving instructors can get involved with. Ladies and gentlemen, John Galloway.
Oh my God, I don't know how to follow that. Thank you very much, David, for that very kind introduction. I don't know about being one of the nicest guys about there. You certainly are in that. But you know what? Having met a lot of ADIs over the last 18 months or so, you guys have all collectively blown me away and everyone else involved in Speed of Sight. Is it worthwhile me giving a background as to what Speed of Sight is about?
Absolutely, yeah. You make it succinct, so the message hits home hard. But yeah, you give a background. It's really important.
Okay, thank you. For those of you that haven't heard of Speed of Sight, we are a charity that provides life-changing driving experiences for people with disabilities. Why do I say it's life-changing? I want you to imagine for one moment that perhaps you have lost your sight, or indeed undergone a stroke, which might have brought on, for example, you can no longer drive, maybe you've lost your sight, maybe you have diabetes, maybe you've lost use of your limbs, maybe you can't use your feet anymore. Or you're born with a disability like cerebral palsy, which renders you which can render you in a wheelchair. Right? So under normal circumstances, Speed of Sight deals with people who are unable to drive a car, either because of life-changing disabilities that they've encountered in adult life, or indeed they've been born with such a disability that means they'll never be able to drive. So in a nutshell, that's the charity. However, what Speed of Sight is, with the help of the amazing ADIs that we've met over the last 18 months, I should qualify that the charity's been going for 6 years now, and we've delivered over 1,000 driving experiences for people that thought it was an impossible dream.
That's great.
How we do it, simply put, I won't bore you with the details, but if you look on our Facebook channel, which is linked to my name, John Galloway, Speed of Sight, or if you Google our website, Speed of Sight, and I've mentioned that a couple of times, that will tell you a lot more what we're about. Now, one other thing I will note, our charity has been founded by a gentleman who's a very best friend, and he was born blind, and his name is Mike Newman. Some of you may have heard of his name before, because this is a blind man that was told at the age of 39, having been born with no vision, that he'd never ever be able to drive a car. And over the last 15 years, not only has Mike defied that myth, he's achieved multiple world records for land, air, and sea.
Oh yeah, he is a world record holder and a man and a half.
He's unbelievable, honestly. He's the star of the show, and he's a very humble guy. In fairness, I'm probably his big head, but I'm very proud to be associated with such a person. And
so come on, tell me about this promotion. Come on, I want to know. I want you to name drop. I want you to name drop Heather Smith.
I'm going to. I can't not name drop Heather Smith. In a nutshell, driving instructors from every single day, right? At my high street now, where I'm living, every single day there's cars driving around. There's buses, there's coaches, there's HGVs, there's vans. You guys are changing the world. You guys give the gift of driving every single day for people who are able to drive. And Heather Smith, who's a lovely ADI, Sue Papworth of Total Driving School, right, has joined a new program that we're calling Pass a Pound.
Pass a Pound.
Pass a Pound. And Heather's helped to practice it with us and fine-tune it, along with Sue, along with many other ADIs who I've had the pleasure of meeting. And we've now got it to the point, today it is now live. So passapound.com. And simply put, the way to get involved is every single time one of your pupils pass their driving test, on that very day, we would ask you, the ADI, to donate £1 via text messaging. Very easy to do. Take a selfie of yourself and the person who's had the opportunity to pass their test that day, and you and the pupil pass £1 each if they can afford it. And that pound will help to gift the gift of driving for someone less able who will never have the opportunity to pass their driving test. So that's it. Speed of Sight, brought to market, pass a pound, and what we will do for you, the ADIs that are supporting the scheme, we will send you free of charge, if you like, a starter pack, and in that starter pack, you will get, these are some visuals now. There we go. Are you ready for the visual?
We want to see them.
Are you ready? Okay. For your car, you will get a car sticker that goes in your bumper or somewhere strategically placed on your vehicle. It says, Pass a Pound, Speed of Sight.
Love it.
People know that you're engaged in that. You will also get, a lot smaller than that, an air freshener, right, which has Pass a Pound on it. So you're fully aware of what we're doing. You will also get a business card, which is that size, but for better visualization, I've got a blown up version. And that card basically gives you the instructions of how you pass a pound and how you promote your driving skill at the same time. This is the key. Every single time you pass a driver right? Which is very good advertisement for your driving skill, right? By simply tagging us at Speed of Sight, Pass a Pound, all of our audience get to see what well you're doing, how well you're doing, and helping us change individuals. Don't take my word for it. I would ask you all to look at passapound.com, check out 2 videos. One video has Sue Papworth, who is our amazing Stigette, and she is an ADI from Toad's Driving School, and I first met her 12 months ago. And she volunteers her time, her own time, to come on a Speed of Sight track day, and she volunteers to be our racing driver that day, helping to give the gift of driving for people who are less able. So it isn't just about passing a pound. If there are driving instructors around the United Kingdom that are willing to give up maybe one day a year to be involved in what we do, then we want to hear from you. If you have a driving school and you want to be involved in helping to change the world and the way people view disabilities, then we'd like you to join Pass a Pound. And your car will be recognised every single time.
John, that's awesome. I want to make a little quick shout out to this very, very special guy. So we've got Heather Smith and Sue Papworth that are working in a scheme right now. Heather came along with her father, actually, who, if I remember rightly, has lost his sight. Is that right?
Yeah, he lost his sight over 10 years ago. And indeed, one of the videos on passapound.com will show a very short interview of Heather talking about witnessing both her dad having the pleasure of driving the car or a car after 10 years of losing his sight.
So let me just take this back in line. The way Heather has been able to help her dad like this is because of a connection with Sue Papworth, and that they're in a locality together. Sue found Speed of Sight because last October, Speed of Sight was at the ADI NJC conference, very good event, and that's in October of every year, and Speed of Sight were there. The reason why Speed of Sight were there is because Speed of Sight for 2 consecutive years have been our charity at the Driving Instructors Business Summit. Now, that's not the beginning of it. Special mention tonight to Dave Francis Wetton up in Chesterfield.
Absolutely, big shout out.
He who tracks you down.
Dave Wetton is an incredible guy. He rang me as you were ADI's work on sociable hours. And one evening, Dave Wetton made a phone call about 7:30 at night to our charity, having never spoken with us before. I think he was surprised that someone from an organisation answered the phone at that time of night, which was me. And from that moment on, Dave and I and the charity, we can't thank him enough. Having gone to your very first summit, or our very first summit of yours 2 years ago, we realised, having been going for now 6 years, that we made one big mistake. And our biggest mistake was not speaking to people who have the same ethos, the same will and desire to help to change people's lives. And those are driving instructors. Since that day, we have had a steady stream of driving instructors who want to get involved to help us. Lynn Barry from ADI NJC, wonderful, wonderful lady, has invited us a number of times. And we're going to the national conference in October, myself.
Excellent.
In addition to that, Edward Marshall, I should also mention, from JEM Driving, has also stepped forward to be one of our racing instructors, and indeed is joining us on our upcoming 2 racing days, advertised on our website. I can't really say, I mean, ADIs just get it. You get it all day long.
They do. Can I tell a big fat porky?
No, please don't tell a porky.
Well, John Sheridan said if you actually start donating to Pass a Pound, you're guaranteed an A on your standards check.
Oh, John, amazing. The one thing, what I will say to anybody, I would say to you all, if you do get the time to check out some of our videos and see the site, because you're obviously going to expect me to sit here in front of you and tell you how good it is. And I promise you, I'm not making it up. But the only way for you to know how good it is to either see it, or better than that, make yourselves available to come to one of our track days. Even if you get 20 minutes, check us out. We're around the country. Pop in and look at us live on stage. You will be blown away. I mean,
well, they can all see you at the summit in January as well.
Yeah, I mean, what I would like to do is give one scenario of one person, and this is one of many people that I could pick. But there's one guy that is one of our ambassadors, is called Chris Fisher, and he lost his sight 10 years ago.
Yeah. And
he used to be a car mechanic, or in fact, a body repairman for BMW. Chris loved cars. He loved driving. He loved motorcycles even more. And 10 years ago, regrettably, over a period of 30 days, he lost his sight.
30 days?
30 days. Lights out. Never to see ever again. Unfortunately for Chris, that resulted in his life changing in ways that he never imagined. I'm sure Chris won't mind me saying now, and he's probably listening to this, that emotionally his life fell off a cliff. In more ways than one, is lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem, and worse than that, anxiety issues. Eventually led to the breakdown of his relationship. And I'm very lucky to have met this gentleman 3 years ago, 7 years into his disability. He drove our car, and by driving that car, believe it or not, changed his life that day. He encountered what I can only describe as an adrenaline rush that we can take for granted, that he never thought he would ever have ever again. And he has repaired his life in so many ways. He has now a successful business. He's now met his new partner in love through one of our volunteers that comes to Speederside Track Day. And he's a fantastic public speaker. And for Chris, he says we helped to put him back on the road emotionally, realizing that the impossible can be made possible.
Excellent. John Galloway, thank you so much for finding the time to be with us tonight. You know, it is a good, there's a lot of negativity in the driver training world. And, you know, you meet people like yourself and Mike at Speed of Sight, and you'll meet another gentleman in a moment, John Sheridan, but all of you see things, you know, glass half full, you're striving, there's a lot of love, there's a lot of ambition, there's a lot of sharing, and it's great to have you here, John. Have you got a final word at all before I stick you on mute?
All I would like to say is, I would like to say thank you to Jed and Claire from Latix Driver Training, who I had the opportunity to meet last week. And without officially launching Pass a Pound, but we are doing it today, they've joined us and they're happy to support this program. And I'm hoping that any ADI out there that wants to make a difference will join us.
Hey, look, if Jed and Claire are doing it, everyone will do it, because it's your best endorsement. It's awesome.
Thank you very much, guys. It's been a real pleasure meeting you, and I'm hoping we'll meet you again.
Yeah, we want you meet John Galloway at the Driving Instructors Business Summit, and you'll buy your ticket at the end of this. It's only 17 quid, and if you don't, I'll hit you with a stale baguette.
And I don't forget, David has given that £17 exclusively to Speed Aside. That is,
and the trade stands, all the money goes straight to you. That's because of Tina. She sponsored it.
Guys, you're amazing. We love you. Thank you.
Right, Tina's not a sponsor. She's a partner in it. She paid for the bloody lot. John, thank you so much. Would you be so kind to hit your mute button for us?
I'm hitting it now. I'm hitting it.
You hit it now.
Bless it.
Wow. John Sheridan.
How can I actually follow that, David? How can I possibly follow Mr. Galloway? What an amazing, inspirational individual he is. Honestly, I'm humbled. I'm humbled. That's just incredible. I did have the opportunity going back a few years ago to visit the QEF, Queen Elizabeth Foundation, down in London. I spent a week there with ADIs who are specialising in teaching people with challenging special needs. And again, I realised that, you know, so many of us make assumptions beyond imagination. And the one thing that we should never assume, in my opinion, is that never say never. And Mr. Galloway, sir, I'll take my hats off to you. Thank you.
Hey, why think about it? There's an article in the Daily Mail today, not that I normally read it, by a writer, I think she's an Aussie, Kathy Lette, her name is, or something like that. And I've reached out to her, she's got back to me. She's got a son in his 20s, and he's autistic. And I've asked if she wants some help with driving lessons, or asked if the question if he passed his driving test, and he hasn't done. And she's based down in London. So they have come back to me. So if you're a driving instructor based in the London area and you specialise in SEN, get in touch with me directly, and I'll put you in touch with this. She's quite a famous author, actually, and she's just releasing books. And yeah, she was front page today, this morning, on the Daily Mail Online. Anyway, John Sheridan, we can't talk about you two.
No, I know that. I'm really sorry that we can't talk about you two, because I know the webinar is only scheduled to last about an hour. So if I was allowed to talk about you two, we'd probably be here until Wednesday. But going back to Mr. Galloway just for a second, if I may, he mentioned the ADI-NJC AGM. I spoke at the ADI-NJC AGM last October, and it was incredibly well attended, very well respected venue. I look forward to seeing anybody there this coming October. I'm talking about October 2017. I shall be. They're obviously very easily pleased, the ADI-NJC crew, because they've invited me back, Mr. Galloway. They've invited me back for a second year. That's not too bad. I'm quite happy about that, because, to be fair, they always make me very welcome, and there is always a lot of love in the room. There's certainly a lot of passion, and you will certainly win some supporters there, sir. So I look forward to meeting you personally in October, please God.
John Sheridan, you need to be careful with John Galloway, because he'll probably bring 500 posters for you to stick up in the test centres.
That's okay. That's okay. We can manage that.
Seriously?
We can make things happen working collaboratively. There's always a way and a mean of getting around the bureaucracy. It's not actually, David, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and how you go about it. When it's not commercially advantageous to anyone, and it's a charitable event, there's always a possibility. And I'm not making any promises, but I will certainly work with John, if I can, to ensure that that's well publicised.
Whoa, that's awesome. How about big poster, pass £1 if you pass, if you fail, it's a tenner.
Well, the problem there is, you know, as an agency, we're sort of judged on our performance, and we're damned if we do and we're shot if we don't, so to speak. So it's a very difficult situation. The driving test, as you well know, even though you openly admit that you're not in the ADI world, as it were, but you're very knowledgeable about all that is driving instruction. But the driving test itself is very, very important. It's a massive event for any individual. So I don't want to belittle that experience. But having said that, ADIs, I'm very lucky in many respects, David, because A, I'm alive and I'm on planet Earth. B, I'm still here at the age of 22. And 3, I've been to a U2 gig last night. So, come on, all is not bad. But on the other side of the fence, I do get the privilege of speaking to so many gifted individuals who are passionate about all that is road safety. And I spend a lot of time talking to ADIs at ADI associations. So I am confident, quietly confident, that I can help John in getting a foothold in local ADI associations like Thank you, John. It's appreciated. Like the North Staffs ADI Association, Selma, who's an absolute diamond.
Yeah, Selma's on tonight.
Yeah, Jill Wilson out in South Staffs. Fantastic. John Lee from South Staffs. There's so many wonderful people who, you know, who will support a wonderful initiative that John supported. So if I can influence that in any way, David, I'll certainly do that.
Magic, like I said, if you can't, I'll come round with a stale baguette.
Yeah, well, you're not going to make my ball patch any bigger than it already is, so I'm not worried.
So come on then. Thank you so kindly for opening the avenues to explore, though. I'll work closely with John, well, both of you, to see what we can do there. So tonight's webinar, then, it's about the part 3. You're the expert here, just to make life difficult for you. How do you want to go about tonight's webinar? Do you want to talk about what the changes are? Do you want to talk about a few of the main issues that are coming at you? Do you want to get people to throw questions at you? I've got a couple of questions already. How do you want to do it?
I think it might be helpful if I just had a bit of airtime, if that makes sense, David. For me, first and foremost, just giving you a bit of background. I mean, I've been with DSA that was, DVSA that is, for 32 years now. And the one thing that I do know is that there's so much that I don't know. Now, that might sound a bit odd to say that, but I've always been connected with the driver training industry. My background is I'm an ADI trainer. I'm responsible for training examiners to deliver the ADI qualifications at Cardington. And then I got sidelined a little bit. I don't know why, to be honest. Maybe the black spots on my head. Maybe I talked too much. I don't know what the problem was. But then I got given this wonderful opportunity of developing my managerial skills and was sent sideways into an area operations role where I was responsible for 9 local driving test centre managers and 134 examiners, covering all the disciplines within DVSA, ranging from category B to motorbikes to LGV, the whole caboodle, plus the line management, if you like. So I was, in effect, the Jeremy Kyle of DVSA at one point in time. But then, all of a sudden, out of the blue, I got this wonderful golden opportunity to go back into the arena that I thoroughly enjoyed and loved, which was all that was driver training. There was a job opportunity for policy in the policy and stakeholder management directorate for a driver training policy manager. So I applied for it. I had to go through the same process as anyone going through a promotional board, which did put me off, to be honest, which meant filling out a paper application form, competency base. You had to then deliver a presentation. I had to deliver a presentation, and then speak to key stakeholders and senior management to convince them that I was the right person for the job. But what concerned me was they only gave me 50 minutes to do so, and it takes me 45 minutes to do a self-introduction. So immediately my back was against the wall. But to cut a very, very long story short, I got the job, and 18 months later I'm still here. I inherited the responsibility then of taking the part 3 to the next stage, because the current part 3, as everyone will be aware of, is fault based. It's old school. It's test centric. It's preset tests. We've got 12 preset tests, 10 examination papers, and it's all about the what's. It's all about, it's all about PDIs and driver trainers focusing on what to teach. Now, that was never a good thing in my view, because when we changed the standards check in 2014, when we went to a competency-based assessment, which was all about how to teach, distinct difference between what to teach and how to teach, there was a misalignment, because the current part 3 didn't align with the qualifying process of the standards check. So you qualified on the old school, and then theoretically had to retrain to prepare yourself for the standards check. And that just did not seem right. So it seemed like a logical progression to move the Part 3, the existing Part 3, into the new world and align it with the National Driver Rider Training Standard. So that was the aspiration, that is the aspiration, and that will happen on the 2nd of October of this year. Now, DVSA do get a lot of stick, to be honest, David. Now, right. we don't just wake up one morning and decide to throw a new rule into the game. It doesn't work that way at all. What we do is we take the customer service, the customer satisfaction element really, really seriously, because what we always have to take into consideration are those who are currently going through the qualifying process. So the first port of call was to enlist the support and the engagement of the key stakeholders. Now we've got an organisation called NASP. I don't know if you're aware of NASP, David.
Yeah. I am. Yeah, where the associations come together.
Yeah. So that's DIA, ADINJC, and MSA. They work with us. So despite the fact that it seems as though it's a DVSA-led initiative, it is a joint-led initiative with the agreements of NASP. And that's really, really important because we work so well together. NASP, to be fair, keep us on the straight and narrow. We work with them, they work with us to ensure that everyone's in a good place. Now, DVSA don't always get things right. I mean, that is a fact. But what we do, as soon as anybody flags up a risk to our reputation, we do something proactive to reduce that risk. And that is exactly what we're working on at the moment. But the bottom line is the new Part 3 will move from a fault-based assessment currently to a competency-based assessment on the 2nd of October. Now, bolting onto that, the key players in the industry are the trainers, the people that, you know, upskill our PDIs, those who want to come into this wonderful profession. Because we want to ensure that we get the right people on board. We want to ensure, as an agency, that we're raising the standard of the quality of ADI training. We're also keen to ensure the quality of driving test candidates has been raised at driving test centre level. For all the reasons that you know and love, the new driving test comes in on the 4th of December, which is all about the higher levels of the GDE matrix, which is the goals for driver education, and bolting on the sat-nav element, which sort of encompasses the distraction elements of the test, as I say, links into the higher levels of the GDE. But the actual driver training element is key. So what we did do, we liaised and we consulted with the key stakeholders, and the audit register, which is currently voluntary. We had 2 audit register and some private trainers attend Cardington on the 23rd of May, and also on the 2nd of June up in Durham. I know you mentioned Jed and Claire, bless them. I mean, geez, I mean, I've got so much respect for those guys. I mean, they came all the way up. They came all the way up to Durham just to listen to me for a day. I mean, they need some form of medical intervention, for goodness sake. But
well, they do support charity.
Yeah. Oh, crikey, yeah, they do. And when you talk about Louise and Blaine as well, I mean, Louise was telling me about some of the charitable initiatives that she's involved in, and you know, and seriously, this isn't reach for sick bank time. There are some incredibly gifted, special people involved in the profession, and I'm just blessed with the role of dealing with them and contributing. Hence the reason why on a Sunday evening, Mr. Poole, I'm more than happy and pleased to sit here talking to you and your wonderful guests.
Well, speaking of wonderful guests, I've got a few questions that are coming in. So Tony Curran, Louise Walsh, Gary, is it Fossey or Fosey? I hope I pronounced your name right there, Gary, and Gavin Brownlee. There's some questions and some points. So I'll start with our friend Gavin Brownlee. Gavin's our prickly pear. Gavin won't mind me saying that.
Gavin's up in Scotland. I've met Gavin a few times. I met Gavin last year at the ADINJC AGM. I think he's probably just about getting over the shock now, I would have thought, but there you go.
I keep telling Gavin I need to buy him some whiskey. But Gavin's made a point here, and I think I read a lot of the instructor forums, and I think Gavin's really speaking on behalf of a lot of instructors out there.
Yeah.
He says that his feeling is that NASP doesn't really work with DVSA, and that NASP pretty much just say yes and endorse what the DVSA. What's your opinion on that, please?
Do you know what, David and Gavin? I know you can hear me, and I'm really sorry if you can actually see me, because I'm probably looking a little bit old and haggard at the moment. I've had a rather tiring, challenging 36 hours. Did I mention I went to a YouTube concert?
Yeah, you did. Carry on.
Yeah, sorry. I'll leave it. But in answer to your question, take it from me, Gavin, and everybody else that's listening. If I had my way, it would be absolutely wonderful if NASP as a collective were a bunch of yes people. And trust me, they certainly are not. And the bottom line is, why should they be? They are representing their membership, and rightly so too. There's 39,800 ADIs approximately on the register. NASP represents approximately 26,000 of those. So there is no way on Bono's wonderful earth that they're going to be just sitting there in attendance and nodding in agreement to everything that DVSA suggests or want to do. That is not how NASP works. My life, for one, would be a lot easier if that were the case. Trust me. I touched on the fact that DVSA have made. We haven't got everything right in the past, and I can't quite remember the dates, and that's an age thing, and I apologise. But going back to the original announcement of the new Part 3, NASP were heavily involved in all of that, and there was a sort of a verbal agreement whereby DVSA would make that announcement initially to our examiners.
Right.
First, and then straight afterwards we'd make it official to NASP, so they could announce it to their members. Well, what happened was we announced it to our examiners, and it leaked out into the wider domain, which caused a little bit of bad feeling in and amongst NASP. And NASP were a little bit irritated with DVSA's comms strategy, and to be fair, rightly so too. So we took the hit. We suffered the bitter pill of making an error of judgment, and we've taken it on board, and we'll do things differently next time. But the bottom line is we're so heavily reliant on the cooperation of NASP and their expertise and their link with the industry. We respect what they say, we respect what they advise us to do, and they are certainly not a bunch of yes people. I can say that categorically.
I have to say that I'm not involved with NASP or the communications with you, but I know all three associations to different levels.
Yeah.
And if you just look at Carly at DIA, she's certainly not a yes lady. And that's demonstrated by the way she's brought that business and changed it. And then when you look at there's several people that lead the ADINJC, with Lynn Barry being a very focal point there.
Yeah.
That has changed an awful lot since Lynn has come in, and she's certainly not a yes lady. So for me, I think anybody can put up an argument to say they're a yes organisation, but if you look at the history of their own businesses, to me, they don't identify as yes people. And I've heard them ask awkward questions, not directly to the DVSA, but awkward questions to try and get the right answers, if that makes sense. Not to be awkward people, but to get to the end cause. So without knowing the inner workings, I can't say, but just looking at their history, I can't see that being the case.
Well, I've known Lynn. I don't want to bore you with the history, but I've known her for probably 2 decades, purely and simply because I'm a Midlander. Lynn lives in and around the Lichfield area, and I'm probably one of the oldest. This probably sounds a bit politically incorrect. I am one of the old farties of the agency, there's no doubt about that. But I am probably one of the very few SCADIs that are left. And your membership listening tonight will remember, I'm sure, the old SCADI of old. I'm talking about early 80s, late 80s, the senior examiner for ADIs, where SCADIs were specifically responsible for a register. Well, Lynn was on my register way back in that day. And it's a pleasure to be still working with her now. And we do professionally cross swords from time to time, Lynn and I. We don't always see eye to eye. And that's healthy. To be honest, that's healthy, David, because she's got the driving instructor industry as a whole at her heart. She wants to ensure that what ADI and JC are representing represents the feelings of the majority, and that's absolutely to be applauded. So it's my role, really, and I'm not somebody trying to sell something to anybody, but when I passionately believe that it's the right thing to do, then I'm quite happy to justify why I'm saying what I'm saying. And we've had a long, deep and meaningful conversation about the new Part 3. And I think personally now, I'd like to think optimistically, and I'm pretty damn sure I'm saying the right thing, that Lynn's in a better place with regard to her feelings about the prospects of the new Part 3. The challenge is going forward for us as an agency is to ensure that people who are currently going through the qualifying process have the opportunity to take the existing examination leading up to the 2nd of October. In other words, to ensure that we've got enough practical Part 3 test slots available for anyone who's already in the learning process.
Can I come on to that, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. There's a couple of points being raised by Tony Curran and Lou Walsh. Hi, Tony. Hi, Lou. Thank you for this. And if anybody's got any questions, please pop them up, because I will get them through, even if it takes until midnight. I won't be on 3 bottles of wine, don't worry. So Tony's kind of got like a double-barreled thing here. And what Tony's talking about is that the training is changing, and that not all test centres are, have been doing the test. And he's training PDIs right now.
Yeah.
Is this just going to come in bang like that? Are people going to be? Are trainers going to have preparation so they can? Will they need to change their lesson plans, for example? Because if you're a PDI right now and you're investing in money, at the moment, you don't know what the end target is. What is the end objective? And I think that's what Tony's really coming in there. Are they going to have to invest in more money for some more lessons? And how can you get that information out to Tony? And the second part of this really comes in from Lou. Lou asks, when will the minister be signing off the changes? So I think the two kind of tie up together.
Okay, let's take Lou's point firstly, if I may. There's 2 issues here, and I'm not going to beat around the bush. The bottom line is we're reliant on a regulatory change for the introduction of the new Part 3 on the 2nd of October. That has not, as it pauses, been understood yet. But the aim for DVSA is to introduce the new Part 3 on the 2nd of October. Similarly, fast forward into the 4th of December, there's also a proposal to change the Part 2 test to align with the new driving test and not to be called the sat-nav test, because it's not a sat-nav test, it's a new driving test. Really important, okay? So there's a link there too, but where the Part 2 is concerned, we do need a change in regulation. Where the existing driving test is concerned, we do not need a change in regulation because the new driving test complies with existing regs. That's really important. So going back to the first part of the question, which was about, just remind me, David.
I'll read it to you. So Tony writes, John, you must be aware that having the new Part 3 only being carried out at current Part 3 test centres is going to be a big problem. With having to have a real learner for up to 3 hours. Also, the
up to 3 hours. Up to 3 hours.
That's what's written in here. Don't shoot the messenger.
No.
Also, the PDI is going to have to spend more money on training to learn the area. And will it need a lesson plan change? Would that mean they're likely to fail? It's a big. Tony thinks this is a big problem.
Okay. Let's look at that, and that's a fair point. Let me sort of try and deal with that in a logical sequence, if I may. Cool. Firstly, if you've got a PDI that's going remotely to acquire development in preparation to enter a new profession. So, for example, you've got John Sheridan, who lives in Stoke-on-Trent, going down to see David Poole, who lives in Plymouth. So I'm going down to see David Poole. I'm going to take my ADI training in Plymouth to enter the register and become an ADI in the future. David Poole will say to me, the first thing you need to take into consideration, John, is two things. Firstly, you need to think about your pupil for your part 3. We can deal with the part 1, we can deal with the part 2, but you need to start planning now for your part 3. Ideally, you need to take your part 3 in an area that you're familiar with. So ideally, you need to take your part 3 in and around the Stoke area. So you can do your training down here in Plymouth. That's not a problem. But let's start thinking long term as opposed to short term. So forward planning is really, really important. Because it's so key that the PDI has got local knowledge just in case that pupil on the day performs slightly differently than you would expect, whereby there's a necessity for that PDI to change the original lesson plan. And to enable them to do that, they need to have good local knowledge. So that is the first thing. The aspiration long term, David, and I think it is a really fair criticism of your attendees tonight. At the moment, we are only suggesting that we're conducting part 3s from the designated areas that we currently deliver part 3s and part 2s from. And there is a reason for that. And I'm going to be open and honest with you because that's how I am. You could buy a second-hand car from me. I'm not going to lie to you. We've got a limited resource. Now, the aspiration long-term is that we'll be able to deliver the part 3 from theoretically any driving test centre because that's how it should work in practice. Yeah. But in reality, we've got approximately 60-odd examiners nationally who are going to be qualified to deliver the standard check and the part 3. We've got approximately 400 driving test centres. So do the maths. It's not going to happen. Okay, we've got to manage expectation. And I'm not going to come onto a webinar such as this saying that, yes, yeah, absolutely. You know, we're all about providing a super duper quality service, which we are incidentally, but I'm not going to lie to you. The only way I'm going to get that quality service across to you is by telling you the God's honest truth. The bottom line is you'll get your part 3, you'll get your standards check local to where you need to have it at an existing test centre that currently delivers the ADI qualifying examinations. Now, fast forward to when you need a standards check. If you decide that you don't want a standards check at that particular location, you can make that happen too. Now, theoretically, and this is the counter argument, and somebody's bound to be sharp enough to come back to me and say, well, hold on a minute, John, you're saying one thing in one breath, but then in the next you're saying, well, hold on a minute, if we can deliver a standards check, surely we can deliver a part 3. And absolutely, totally 100% right and correct. And there's always that potential. Our aspiration going forward is to open up the provision of that service so that you've got more choice, so that customers have got more choice. I remember having a rather uncomfortable conversation with Jed because I've got so much respect for Jed and Claire. I've got so much respect for Jed and Claire, and we go back collectively as we go back a long way, as I do with quite a few people online tonight, and it wasn't a salesman's pitch to Jed, but I listened to what he had to say. And he certainly listened to me, which I really appreciate because it's a two-way conversation. But I was honest with him, and I said the bottom line is even though a lot of your PDIs come from further afield, they need now to start thinking long-term. One of the most important skills for any PDI coming into the industry is thinking about sourcing business. One of the core skills, and yet we've never covered that on the preset tests. No. It's always been, what to teach, not how to teach, how to manage a business, how to be successful, how to think outside the box, how to manage your own CPD, how to take your business to the next level. None of that sort of stuff. And that's what I love about all of this. So I'm sorry if that is a long-winded answer. And I think it was, I can't remember the question now, David. That's old age.
Tony Curran.
Tony Curran. Mr. Curran, sir, I'm sorry it was a long-winded answer, but you know you always get good value for money from me.
I'd like to come in on the end bit, if you don't mind.
Please.
And I'll keep it brief because we don't need to go on about it too much. But when I came into this industry in 2008, I thought it would be a bunch of entrepreneurs, a bunch of business people. And how wrong was I? I'm not being detrimental.
Some are, David. Some are.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm not being detrimental but by saying that. I just had a huge wake-up call to realise that people do come into this industry for different reasons other than making a business. It can be, a bit of altruism there, which is great. It's always astounded me that there's very, very little help for myself and a few other people that support with businesses. And, I would like to see that changed. But there we go. Look, I want to add my 2 pence in while I'm scrolling up for a question here. And I couldn't find it. It's from Gary Fossey. Actually, Gary, thanks so much tonight, Gary. Gary's putting through two questions here. So what I'm going to do...
How dare he?
It is, I'll read the first question, then I'll scroll down to the second one. So Gary writes, when do the DVSA envisage the promised impact assessments will be published, which is the means they have stated they will use to manage concerns, including draft legislation, and what are their plans and timescales for full consultation?
Yeah, I mean, we've taken the concerns and the opinions of the key stakeholders very seriously. We've relied heavily on NAS to support us with all of that. We've consulted with PDIs, ADI trainers as a whole. But the question is, when will they publicise those findings? Some of the key facts have already been put in the public domain, but with regard to the impact assessment and everything else, that is still that's still ongoing, because there is a current impact in as much as what happens if we don't get the regulatory change, and that's a big impact for everyone. That's a big concern for everyone, especially DVSA. And I'll give you a classic example as to why that is the case. We don't just introduce a new, or I don't introduce a new qualifying examination without considering the impact to our own industry, our own agency. I've got approximately 70 odd examiners who are qualified to deliver the existing standards check. I need to upskill them so that they're knowledgeable and they've got the understanding as to how to deliver the new Part 3 and differentiating between the Part 3 and the standards check, and dealing with some of the risks associated with the new Part 3, some of the risks that have been highlighted through NASP, such as the potential risk of a contrived lesson, etc., etc. So with that in mind, I've had to get, I've had to walk an incredible challenging path to get agreement to get so many examiners released from the day-to-day job to attend Cardington in August for a week beginning the 22nd, so I can upskill them basically. So that's massive, but other than that, yeah, it is huge, David. But the impact is widespread. But to see something written on paper is one thing, but actually to realise it in reality is a different ballgame.
Will you say 600 examiners?
No, there's 76 in total. Okay. 76 in total, but bear in mind, at the moment they're working for a directorate called Operations, so right. they're involved in day-to-day driving testing. Now, those examiners long-term will be moving a different directorate, from operations, into a directorate called enforcement. So they will become a dedicated ADI team in the new world. Now this all sounds very complex, but
sounds more responsive, actually.
Yeah, actually, it's very positive, because the average ADI examiner at the moment works 1 day a week on ADI practicals and standards checks. In the new world, when they're drafted into this new directorate, they'll be working 5 days a week solely on ADI. So the number of practical test lots will be increased. The number of standards checks hopefully will be increased. The number of audit inspections going forward will be increased, because there's going to be a reignition of enthusiasm for all that is audit. So the bottom line is DVSA are taking the quality assurance and the raising of standards very seriously. Hence the reason why we've now got a dedicated workforce specifically for all that is ADI. And we haven't had that since the middle of the 90s. I mean, that's a real positive move.
Do you mind if I be a prickly pear?
Go for it.
And you're really going to get this from an outsider here.
In
terms of, I don't sit in the car and the rest of it. You had a grading system which was basically a three grades really, a 4, a 5, and a 6.
Yeah.
And you switched to an A and a B.
Yeah.
I think the previous grade 6 was like, I don't know, 8%, 9% of ADIs,
yeah.
and I think grade A now is 25% of ADIs.
Yeah.
I'm not being detrimental, but it seems to me that it's been diluted. I would have thought it would have been better to stick with the 3-level grading system, or even maybe to extend it to a 5-level grading system. I couldn't understand why it's either A, B, and A, or...
Okay.
The second part is, because I'm aware that the DVSA seem to be, I've not got this from you, but seem to be wanting the end user, the pupil, to be more aware about grading.
Yeah.
And therefore aware about A's and B's. It would seem, I'd like to see something in the future where if an instructor does get a B, they can put their hand up and say, hey, can I book a testing with you so I've got another crack at getting an A?
Right, so hang on to that thought then, David, just for a second. Let's go back to your first point about diluting the standards and reducing the grading from effectively 3 grades to 2.
Yeah.
Before that happened, way back in April 2014, we had a big push to encourage ADIs to consider continuing professional development. I myself, with a colleague called Hugh Granger-Allen, did a bit of a UK tour, going to loads and loads of driving test centres and ADI association meetings up and down the country, talking about all of his CPD and taking ownership for the quality of what you're delivering at driving test centre level. Now, we met with a lot of resistance. That was a voluntary, that was an incentive really that was just being promoted nationally. So then the standards check changed in April 2014.
Yeah.
A lot of ADIs were fully citing on the proposed changes, and they themselves deserve, and we shouldn't shy away from this. We should give the ADI industry a real pat on the back, because the ADI industry as a whole, maybe not everybody, but the majority went away thinking, sugar, I need to take stock here, because this is a radical change. Theoretically, there is a risk to my employment. So I either need to join a local association and find out more about this standards check, or go to an audit trainer, an accredited audit trainer with a good reputation, and acquire some intervention, some development on what's working well for me, what isn't working well for me, and what I should consider doing differently. So whilst the stats on paper might not look encouraging, I think we should also consider the positivities, which is what the ADI industry has done to positively react to that change. That's the first point, I believe. With the new Part 3, when you consider 18% of experienced ADIs currently fail the standards check, what I can't do with that 18% is break it down into whether that's the first attempt, second attempt, or the third attempt. But 18% of experienced driving instructors fail the standards check. Now, we're going to get beaten up, I'm sure, with the new Part 3, because the pass rate currently is about 29% nationally on the existing Part 3.
Once they get to Part 3.
Once they get to Part 3, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Mark McGee, bless him, I mean, he's passionate about all of his standards and raising standards. And I'm going to say something now, and I hope Mark doesn't take this the wrong way, because he will listen to it on the record, I'm sure. But Mark made a statement at one of the audit workshops, and what he said was, sadly, there are too few PDIs completing the process, which suggested that, hold on a minute, is that suggesting that DVSA want to raise the completion rates? Well, yes, it is suggesting that DVSA want to raise the completion rates, but for the right reasons, not to include another 39,800 on the register, but we want the right calibre of individual qualifying and completing successfully because they've had quality training in preparation for the qualifying examinations.
Hey, look, John,
big difference. Big difference.
John, you can't say this, but I can, right? And I don't mind if I get spanked down for it a bit. But there's a lot of lies in this industry that tell people, and they paint a picture of what it's like to be a driving instructor, and they start taking that training and they realise it's not for them.
Do you know, back in the day, David, and I will say, when I was at SEADI Wolverhampton, and I was there for 11 years, and I did Part 3s 5 days a week, 5 days a week, but goodness knows how long. So I served my apprenticeship. But I used to see a certain training organisation pull up on the car park. I'm not going to name names, I'd never do that. That's not professional. I'd never do that. But as soon as I saw the headboard, I realised that I was about to witness a load of tosh. And there was this saying, 2 arms, 2 legs and 2 grand. And it was terrible, you know. Ideally, we want to be encouraging people who are passionate about road safety. We want to encourage the entrepreneurs of the new world, those people who've got aspirations to make a success, not only of contributing to road safety, but also aspirational in as much as they want to be successful business people. And we've got a lot of them online tonight.
Absolutely.
They are there.
They're giving their time up tonight. They're not with their family. And we don't want a bleeding sausage factory, because that's how some companies made it, a bloody sausage factory. And we're talking about people's lives. We're talking about death on the road. That's the bottom line.
Do you know what, David? One of the questions I always ask myself, and I would suggest that anybody listening tonight asks themselves the same question. If you're recommending an ADI or an ADI trainer to anyone, it doesn't matter, always ask yourself this question. If that was my son or daughter, would you allow them to go to that ADI or that ADI trainer? And if the answer is no, you shouldn't be recommending them. And similarly, and I'm going to say this before one of you, I know what your members are like, I know how passionate they are, I know how bubbly they are. They're going to come back at me straight away and say, well, hold on a minute, John. At driving test centres, you've got Mr. Grumpy, Mr. Angry, Mr. Happy. So it can be said, the said could be saying at driving test level. So is every examiner as good as Bono?
Bono thinks God, so highly unlikely.
I'm slipping the odd Bono, you know, quip in, but joking apart, examiners are human beings, and it's all about personality. Certain ADIs warm to certain examiners, and I hear ADIs in waiting rooms saying, oh, thank goodness you haven't got John Sheridan, he's a right miserable so-and-so. Hopefully you'll get that nice David Poole or that. Hey, listen, if we get John Galloway, we're on a winner straight away. Listen, all that sort of stuff. And that's what happens. And before you know it, these reputations, these rumours, these stories are out there in the public domain. But it's about people, it's about professionalism.
I need to get to the next question, but I want to make sure.
I'm not going to let you go to the next question because
I want you to answer my bloody question. It went from a 3-level grading system to a 2-level grading system.
Yeah.
It looks like, forget the level of barrier to grade 8. It looks like dilution.
Okay, it's not dilution because when you think about the original system, it was based on identification, analysis and remedy over the course of a 1-hour period, which wasn't client-centered. It was all fault-based. Now we're looking at a client-centered based 1 hour lesson, specifically tailored to meet the needs of that individual. Completely different, David. Also, for that ADI to come out with a B, they need to have demonstrated competence within those 17 sub-competencies, not 3 boxes: ID, analysis and remedy. So it's not a dilution. Now, what I want to go on to say here, so Mr. David Poole, sir, you're now a grade A. Yeah. John Galloway is also a grade A, but John Galloway is a 51, he's a superstar. You're just a star, no disrespect, you're a grade A, but you're not as big a star as John Galloway.
I know that.
But John Galloway has taken 10 tests to a driving test centre. Yeah. You've also taken 10 tests to a driving test centre. Mm-hmm. John Galloway's had 1 pass out of those 10 tests, even though he's a 51, but you've had 7 passes. Who's Mark McGee going to send for first for a standards check? You, sir, or Mr. Galloway?
Are you telling me that pass rates need to be linked in to the grade?
Well, without a shadow of a doubt, Mark McGee is already responding to poor performance. So people should not be complacent. People should not rest on their laurels. Mm-hmm. If the examiners are saying, hold on a minute, I'm talking about examiners at driving test centre level now, are saying, listen, that John Galloway is a lovely man, but the standard he brings up is awful, absolutely awful. I'm having to terminate tests, I'm having to take action. Sorry, John, take a deep breath, don't listen to this. Mark McGee will respond to that, and he is responding to it. It's already happening. It's already happening, David. So the grading system is an administrative tool. It's not. It's a snapshot of what that ADI is capable of delivering at that moment in time. It's a bit like an MOT, if you like, as an analogy.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, it is. So I would suggest to any ADI listening tonight, please don't live in fear, because that's not what this is about. What this is about as a whole is about raising standards. Please, please, please take ownership of the quality.
Once you've got because I know this is difficult from an operations point of view, but once you've got the infrastructure in place, will you be looking at the opportunity for a driving instructor to put their own hand up and say, look, I've been doing the CPD, I am a grade B, can I have another crack, please, and book a test?
Yeah. That will happen. That will definitely happen, because we've got some ADIs who are probably listening tonight are involved in speed awareness courses, drink drive rehabilitation, all that sort of stuff, whereby they need to be at a grade A. We've also got aspirations going forward for audit trainers. That's the official register of driving instructor trainers. And none of this has been agreed yet, as he very quickly sticks a caveat into the speech. The aspiration is for all audit trainers to be a grade A. Now, if an audit trainer doesn't achieve a grade A, bearing in mind they're training instructors theoretically to be successful on a standards check, they also need to be given the opportunity to take another opportunity to achieve that goal. So the answer in a nutshell is yes. But what I can't tell you at this moment in time, David, is when that will happen. There's so much change going on at the moment. We've talked about the part 3. We've touched on the part 2. We've briefly touched on audit. But audit also needs to align with the National Driver and Rider Training Standard.
Before we get into audit, I'd just like to raise a question on here, just to type of a few loose ends here.
You carry on.
Thank you. It's Gary Fossey. It's the second part to his question, and there's quite a bit on here. It says it's interesting to know that the statutory instrument hasn't been progressed. And as an add-on to his previous question, taking into account the legal duty to publish and consult on the impact assessment, how certain is John, that'd be you, John, that 2nd of October timescale is going to be met?
How certain am I, John? Listen, I'm the eternal optimist. My glass is always 3/4 full. After last night, my glass is overflowing. That's another story, because I might not have told you, but I went to a YouTube last night. Anyway, but joking apart, as an agency, our aim is to deliver the new Part 3 on the 2nd of October. No ifs, no buts. The only fly in the ointment at the moment is the question mark over regulation. I cannot categorically predict that that will be rubber stamped before the 2nd of October. I'll be foolish if I did that. But I'm quietly optimistic, so just bear with us. And I would suggest, but I would say, David, and all the ADI trainers online tonight, please don't be thinking about this regulatory change not happening. Please plan now for the regulatory change happening. That's so important.
I've got 2 questions coming in. I might need to scan down to look some more, because they're all relevant to the Part 3. And for the people who are watching this, we really appreciate you here. And I'm sorry that some of the conversation is going from A to D to C to B to E. But it's the way the questions are coming in and the flow. And I want to try and get all questions answered. So I'm going to make 2 comments. One's from Peter Lee, and the other one is from Mark Cornford. Good evening, Peter and Mark. Thank you very much for being here and taking the time to ask that question. Peter writes, so it needs to be delayed then until you have enough examiners trained. Take a local PDI into Bedford with local knowledge where they're supposed to do the Part 3 test? Question mark. And Mark comes on and says, I'm not quite sure how the provision of Part 3 tests will happen locally from the 2nd of October. How can examiners be made available locally if their diaries are full elsewhere?
Right, okay. Firstly, let's deal with the last question first. Examiners will be conducting ADI practical tests from the existing test centres that are already being allocated for ADI practicals. The only difference is from the 2nd of October, the examiner will not be providing a role play facility. It'll be down for the PDI to attend, and I love this statement, but to attend with a live pupil. And that's why I'm saying you need to start planning now for that change. Really, really important. If you've got a Part 3 in the system currently, and you're thinking, hold on a minute, I'm not ready to take the new Part 3 on the 2nd of October, then the fact that you've got the new Part 3 in the system means that you can defer it. You don't have to actually attend on that appointment date. I would suggest that you cancel it and defer it. Leave it in the system, so even though it's over the 2-year qualifying period, you can still take the Part 3 test at a time and at a location. The location element, really, really important to suit you, because as a PDI, you need to be familiar with the area.
John, also, I'm going to pause you there, and there's a real good reason why, because I kind of want you to repeat I kind of want you to go over what you've said after this following question, because the question, I want his words to come out, because he's a PDI right now. So if you can address, his name's Graham Taylor, if you can address Graham directly on this, I think it'll be a help for him, and it'll be a help for everybody else. It's really relevant. And Graham writes, he writes, I'm currently a PDI and a trainee license. Most of my training is teaching lessons with my trainer watching, with a little PST training. Do I go for Part 3 or new test? So
he's asking me that question.
Yeah, he's asking me that question.
That's not a question for me. That's a question for him to his trainer. The bottom line is, it's about client-centered learning. It's about you as a person. You need to consider what is the best process for you. You could consider at this moment in time, you're quite fortunate, if that doesn't sound too harsh, because you've actually got a choice. You could take the existing qualifying route, which is the full base, the role play elements, or you could defer till the 2nd of October and take the new qualifying examination with a live pupil, and you could demonstrate, as I say, client-centered learning over the course of an hour, specifically tailored to that individual. So it's not a question for me, actually, David. That's a question for his trainer, and that's really important.
I'm really happy he's raised that question.
Yeah, I'm too.
Really happy. We've got PDIs on here tonight, taking the time and taking a solid.
Can I also say, David, it's a big thank you to everyone who's actually gone to the trouble of dialing in tonight. But as you say, especially the audit trainers, the ADI trainers, the PDIs in particular, who are passionate about achieving their goal, and that shows that professionalism very early on in their career, that they've sacrificed some of their own personal time on a Sunday evening to phone in and listen to the likes of myself.
Have you got company? You've been refreshments being brought in?
My wife has just brought me, can you see that? A glass of iced water.
Vodka.
Oh, if only.
My cellar's just there, but it means I've got to leave and go and get and undo it.
Dave, you leave. I'll do the facilitating. You leave. I'll carry on.
Okay. So, this is not really a question. I think it's more of a statement, and it's a good statement. It's from somebody called Mel. Mel, I don't know whether you're a boy or a girl, or a man or a woman. You know, surname. I don't know if it's Melanie or Melvin. Melissa. And Mel writes, I presume you're a lady, right? Mel writes, what about having a register of approved ADI trainers to eliminate the bad trainers we all know are out there? I suppose that'd be enforcing audit.
Oh, if only. I mean, I think back to 1997 when Ross Silcock, the Ross Silcock recommendations, when DSA had consultants come in to look and assess it, what we did and how we did it as an agency with regard to all this ADI. And one of the recommendations was that audit would be made mandatory. That was, 1997. This is now 2017. We still haven't got it mandated. And I did say to Mark McGee, do you think it'll happen in my lifetime? And Mark said to me, how long do you think you'll live? And I said, well, I want it to happen. We want it to happen. And I know Mark McGee is absolutely passionate about it making it happen. And on the subject of Mr. McGee, it might sound like reach for a sick bag, but he's an absolutely genuinely nice, caring individual. But he passionately cares about all his driving instruction, and he wants to try and keep everyone in a good place with regard that is all his ADI. So, that's why I'm refreshed, that's why I'm enthused, that's why I love doing what I'm doing. And as I say, one day, Mel, but if you go into a butcher and buy a piece of dodgy meat, do you tell your friends to go there and buy a joint of beef, or do you tell them to go elsewhere? Word of mouth counts for an awful lot. And that sort of segues nicely into Fine Generis. And what we're trying to do as an agency is also is to improve the amount and the quality of information available to the public, so they can make a more informed choice as to where to go for any service that is out there in the public domain.
Okay, cool. Right. Again, my questions might go a little bit on a tangent here. I suppose this next one is more of a statement rather than a question, but you'll be able to relate to it. This is from a lovely lady, if it's the same one, over in Derbyshire, Melanie Smith. Melanie writes, pupils and parents never ask about grades, and I don't really think it's relevant. I know previous grade 6s have failed their standards check, and some fantastic ADIs with a B. I personally don't feel the standards check is relevant to my skills. I don't like tests and don't do a normal lesson, which my pupils totally agreed with. And with what she writes there, I see that on the Facebook boards all the time.
Yeah. Actually, I think Melanie's got a valid point. Similarly, the majority of parents don't know the difference between a pink and a green badge.
No.
And seriously, Mel, if you've got the golden bullet, if you can give me that nugget of information as to how I could influence and improve the understanding out there in the bigger field, please let me know, and I'll take the credit for it, because we've been trying to do it for years. I mean, I attend so many ADI association meetings. I attend so many schools and talk to people and try and educate them. But short of that, what else do we do? We've got a website, we've got the publications, we've got the highway code. There's been suggestions that we include something in the provisional license issuing when we issue a provisional license with regards to the differences between badges and qualifying. All of that's been talked about, but nothing's ever happened. So keep the ideas flowing, but listen, I'm totally in your corner.
Well, you know how all the ADI community really all know each other. Melanie Smith has just told me off. She says, "No, I'm in Surrey. You're thinking about Mel Taylor." By the way, I've got the golden bullet for that. It's ever so easy. The government have done it before. You have to display a no smoking sign in your car because it's your business. And I think a lot of people will kill me for this, but just have a sticker on the dashboard saying I'm fully qualified, I'm a grade A, or I'm a grade B, or I'm a PDI in training. There you go, done and dusted. Right, the person might have booked the first lesson, but the sticker's on the dashboard.
Yeah, but like I said before, the greatest of respect, David, and the greatest of respect to everybody on board tonight. If you're a grade A and you've got your 51, brilliant, it doesn't get any better than a 51. But are you telling me the 7 lessons you deliver on a daily basis are all at a 51 level? Because, you know, we're all human beings at the end of the day. You get tired, you switch off.
Hey, Graham Hooper didn't get 51.
Oh, well, what can I say? Mr. Hooper, I'm very, very surprised, because if anyone should be a 51, it should be Mr. Hooper.
Sue McCormack did. Quite, you don't have to get some stick. Look, I've got some more great questions, and I'm just going to run down here.
Yeah.
There's a great lady. I do know her really well because she's a client. Evening, Vicky. That's why I said she's great. Actually, she's very good. Vicky's not been in the industry that long. It's a few years. She's been with the National Driving School, and she's setting up her own business. She's independent, and she wants to have a trainer within a school, which she has done, because she's taken the responsibility in a different way for driver training. So Vicky's got a couple of points on here. Good evening, Vicky. What stops a PDI just focusing on one main subject to get them through the test? Some schools will allow this just to get more ADIs on their books, leading to more bad instructors. And her second point, if that wasn't strong enough, when the grade A only audit comes in, what will happen to those who are on the register already and got a grade B?
Okay, let's take the first one first. Firstly, Vicky, this is sort of linked nicely into the concern stroke risk about the control lesson. The one thing that is potentially risky is the fact that somebody may decide to rehearse a lesson. I mean, failing to plan is planning to fail. So if you are planning a lesson for a standards check or a part 3, that's a good thing. However, for the part 3 in particular, what is incredibly challenging is the uncertainty and the unpredictability of other road users and your pupil on the day, and also the dynamic of the test itself, because on the day of the test you might turn up for this rehearsed lesson which you've choreographed and you've got down to a fine art, and you're confident that you're going to now be working for this corrupt driving school, which also worries me somewhat, because are you suggesting, Vicky, that driver trainers in the whole are corrupt? Because anyone involved in the driver training industry should be about delivering quality training to ensure any PDI representing their company is professional and adequately skilled to deliver a quality service. Because
I think Vicky comes from a point of view that a lot of people share, that anybody can train an ADI, and sometimes they'll do it just for an extra £5 an hour. Maybe corrupt is too strong a word. I'm speaking on behalf there of Vicky. I don't know.
Well, to be honest, David, I disagree. You cannot just train an ADI for an extra £5 an hour. For an ADI to be an ADI, you need to have certain qualities and certain skills. First and foremost, you need to be able to understand learning styles. And I speak to loads and loads of ADIs up and down the country, and I talk about learning styles. And I see the shutters coming down straight away, and I'm talking about experienced ADIs because they don't understand what I'm even talking about. So then when I mention the GDE matrix, they say, GDE, what does that mean? What's all that about? So anyway, forget the science of the industry, let's look at the pragmatical side of it. The bottom line is, when I talk about the dynamics and the pressures of a test, so you've rehearsed your lesson, you're going out there with the aim of hoodwinking the examiner doing the assessment sat in the back. But on the daily tests, first and foremost, your pupil now understands the reality of the situation, so it's a test environment. You yourself are under a little bit of additional pressure because it's make or break. You either deliver the goods or you don't deliver the goods. The examiner sat in the back is also under a little bit of pressure because he has to come up with the right result for the correct reasons. But also, this bloke called John Sheridan, or one of his oppos, decides to land on the doorstep and sit in and observe the test. So now there is additional pressure. There's a change in atmosphere within the car. Once the classroom starts moving, you've got the unpredictability of all the other road users. So you've rehearsed the route and all of that sort of stuff. But on this particular day, you've got a burst water main, so you've got a deviation to contend with. Your pupils behaving completely differently, so your original lesson plan is going out the window. Now you've got to consider a change in lesson plan. Otherwise, you're not going to hit any of the key areas and the sub-competencies. So it's all going to go Pete Tong or Pete Bono.
So what you're saying is then, to be succinct, that there are plenty of other variables that will come into play that counteract the question itself.
Oh, it's massive. Honestly, it's huge. In my 32 years, I really don't think it's achievable. And I've had this argument, stroke debate, stroke conversation with so many other professionals within the industry. And let's be honest, and I said it very early on in our conversation this evening, DVSA are introducing this examination for one reason only, and that is to raise standards, not get more people through the process. Let's be quite frank about that. This is about raising standards, it's about raising the game. Unless we do that, then if we always do what we've always done, we'll get what we've always got. Does that make sense? What does that sound like? I'm drinking.
I can follow that. I'll have to speak on behalf of everyone, but yeah, I can follow that.
Yeah. So the bottom line is, this new examination is going to sort the wheat from the chaff, but it's also going to sort out a lot of the ADI trainers, because interestingly, and this is really important for everyone to hear, ADI trainers will also be accountable for the quality of PDI in the new world. Did I not stick that one in earlier? No, I didn't. I left that one for the end.
This kind of links in with Gavin Brownlee. Yeah. Gavin dropped a message a few minutes ago, and it's to do with learners actually, but this links in. Gavin thinks that you can't judge the ADI on pass rates. And I'm not just saying that comment just stays with Gavin. He does represent a large chunk of ADIs. But I thought it was quite relevant to bring in right now, because you're saying that the driver trainer will be judged on the person that's being passed.
Absolutely, I'm saying it. But when we look at quality, and I can agree with Gavin's point of view to a point, because regardless of how good a trainer you are, regardless of how good an ADI you are, we could all have failures on tests. The bottom line is, our pupils, our PDIs can let us down on the big day for many, many reasons. But what you cannot argue is the fact it's about quality. So if you get a candidate attempt a driving test, and that test is terminated in the interest of public safety, or the examiner throughout the course of the test has had to take verbal or physical intervention to avoid dangerous situations, and they've ended up with multiple serious faults, or the PDIs attended and they're just absolutely awful because they're just inadequately prepared. They don't know the area. They don't know how to manage risk. It's very easy to determine the difference between the two. So whilst I accept what Gavin is saying, this is about quality. This is about upping the game now.
And it can be and is recorded quantitatively, because there's a tick box. So I mean, people do get fails, and I do get beat up for saying this, but I say people fail because of lack of preparation, lack of confidence, whether ADIs like it or not. you know, and it's not just about the driving test, it's any sort of test, whether it's GCSE, an A-level or something professional. If you don't pass, it's because of lack of preparation linked to confidence. But, you know, sometimes these things happen in life, but there is a big difference in failing, just failing because of maybe something worse, or, you know, something out of this world. And I think that's what you're talking about, really, how you fail or how someone fails.
Without a doubt, it's how somebody fails, and that's a really good description, David. Thank you, because I got beaten up at the ADI NJC AGM last year because I stood up in front of so many people and talked about the grade A instructor who'd taken 10 tests for tests, and the grade B, but the grade B had loads more passes than the grade A. So who would you want to see first on the standard check? Oh, crikey, they didn't like that at all. But it's a bit like being a football manager. You're judged on results. Yeah. And it's no different. And then, okay, there's going to be some sharp cookie listening tonight who's going to say, well, okay, John, I hear what you're saying, and I accept what you're saying, but let's turn that around. What about the examiners' pass rates? Let's have the examiners' pass rate. That's the next question you can ask me. So let's get that one out in the open straight away. ADIs are independent. They're assessed periodically on a standard check, possibly once every 4 years if they're a grade A. Potentially longer because we've screwed up as an agency administratively, but we're doing our best to see all ADIs sooner rather than later. But it can happen whereby you are left longer than you should be before you get seen, whereas examiners are regularly observed, and I'm going to say regularly, they get a minimum of 4 a year. You get managers such as myself landing at test centres going out with examiners. We've got an internal independent quality assurance process which independently validates the quality of what examiners are doing. So the examiners are being scrutinised left, right and centre to ensure that we're delivering a consistent quality service. That's what we do. That's what we take pride in as an agency. So it's completely verified. And we've got ISO 9001 verification for all of that process, and that's why we do what we do. So the ADI and the examiner pass rate publication is completely different. And I don't understand. If I was a grade B, and there's nothing. Listen, incidentally, everybody, there's nothing wrong with being a grade B. A grade B is a grade B. You know, you've demonstrated competence, feel proud, but also consider what could I do to be a grade A. How do I get that grade A?
When you're a grade A, it doesn't stop there. What else can you do?
Precisely, David. So you never stop learning. Never stop learning.
There's a point that's coming from Kathleen Kirkland, and I can really understand what she's talking about. Yeah. There are a lot of driving instructors that deal with niche markets, especially automatic is one as well. Yeah. And Kathleen's coming in here. She says, I think pass rates are not really a true reflection of your teaching ability. Many of her customers are nervous females. They've got a tendency of falling apart on their test. So as a result, her pass rate is poor. And I get that because some people do specialise in that, and they are picking a group of people. I mean, you can also talk about special education needs as well. I'm not saying that all special education needs people have got a high propensity of failing. Some people are absolutely magic, and we've actually got ADIs on SEN, and they've got, you know, their business is in top shape. But no, I think she makes a really relevant point. There are some driving schools that specialise with a certain type of people that have got a higher likelihood of failure, but that's going to reflect on the ADI.
Listen, was it Catherine, David?
Kathleen.
Kathleen makes a valid point. Kathleen, I'm in total agreement with you, because if I was teaching in special needs and I only took one test in the last 12 months, 2 tests, and that test passed, I'd have 100% pass rate. But if that same test failed, I'd have 100% fail rate. So you've got to be able to interpret the data. It's about MI, and it's not just about the pass rate itself. It's about drilling down into the quality. So when you look at the DL25, for example, and you look at the number of driving faults, the number of serious faults, the number of terminations, the number of physical interventions, which we touched on earlier. So it's about establishing the quality. So it's not about quantity, it's about quality. It always will be. So I agree, David, totally agree with Kathleen's points.
Excellent. Right, okay, I'm just going to go on here, look for another question that's a little bit relevant to that, if I can. You're talking about quality, so okay, we'll go back to Vicky Eltham. Vicky's got a follow-up point on here. She says, nothing happens to those ADIs trainers who have lots of failings. What difference does it make?
How does she know?
Ooh, jungle drums. I don't know, but it is a.
Well, okay. No, I'm just being facetious.
I know you are.
I'm just being mischievous. The bottom line is, trust me, we do take action, and things are happening. And just to give you another angle on that, examiners also at driving test level get incredibly frustrated, particularly with me, because I'm the driver training policy manager. So I'll go into a driving test centre and they'll say to me, John, I've reported a guy called David Poole. He's been coming up here for the last 6 months. He's not an ADI. He's been giving illegal instruction. He's still attending and nothing ever happens. I'm sick of it. I'm frustrated. You know, what can we do? Now, what they don't fully appreciate is what's going on behind the scenes. We've got a fraud and integrity team who are collating evidence, and they're building a case to ensure that CPS ensure that it's watertight. And we do take people off the road, and we do take vehicles off the road, as I'm sure you're aware, because we're responsible for not only for the quality of driver, quality of driver training, but also the safety of vehicles on our road. That's what life of safe driving is all about, and sort of links into our 5-year strategy. But you might think nothing happens, but it does. Similarly, at driving test centre level, Mr. Grade A John Sheridan, who is a really nice guy, but the standard that he brings up is habitually poor, that is not going to be tolerated. That is not tolerated, because as soon as Mark McGee is notified via intelligence, via examiner information, that this John Sheridan character is habitually attending with a poor standard, even though he's a grade A and he only had a standards check 12 months ago, he's now called for another standards check. That is happening as we speak, but it isn't publicised as such. No. It is happening.
I do know it's happening. I can't speak too openly about this, and I really am not the person for people to speak to about it either, but I will get an email every now and again saying, David, I have a predicament with DVSA here. I'm out of line. They recognise I'm out of line. What's the best course of action can I take? And what I do is I generally point them to an association, because they've got the contacts and the way of doing it. So Vicky, you know, what John's talking about, I'm just one person. I do see it, and there are some other people on this webinar tonight who you know the names of, who I'm sure they get contacted as well, and probably more so. Vicky was saying that you've not answered a question properly about the Grade B audit. So
okay, no, I'm sorry, Vicky. Firstly, the grade A situation with audit trainers has not been rubber stamped, so it hasn't been agreed yet. So that is not in place yet, because the audit process currently is still fault-based. The audit process as a whole needs to be completely revamped and aligned with the National Driver and Rider Training Standards. So it's not going to happen for a while. But addressing your question, should you not get your grade A as an audit trainer, it won't necessarily mean immediately you'll be removed from the audit register, because the audit register is voluntary, as you well know. Yeah. You are also paying for an audit inspection. So theoretically, you're paying for standards check via the audit process. Now, the aspiration, and again, I'm going to go to great lengths to say that none of this has been agreed yet, but if you get your grade A on an audit inspection in the new world, whenever that happens, I would like to think that Mark McGee will be in agreement that will also negate the need for you to attend for a standards check. So that will encourage stroke incentivise people to get the grade A. But if you're unfortunate enough to have a bad day at the office, and let's be honest, it can happen to any of us, you won't be taken off the register. You'll be given another opportunity to get a grade A. And I would like to think it'd be at least 3, in line with the current standards check process. Bear in mind, you're paying for those inspections, so it's in your own interest really to ensure that that doesn't happen. And to be fair to the majority of people on the audit register, they're professional, they're diligent, they're passionate and tenacious about all that is driver training, and they take stock. So don't think negatively.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got 2 more questions, and then we're going to kind of wrap it up there with John Sheridan and John Galloway saying their last words.
Well, John Galloway's fallen asleep, hasn't he? Bless him.
He's waving his hand around. Probably his wife pulling a string. Stephen Brown in Boston. Good evening, Stephen. How you doing? And Tony Curran again. I'm going to read both because they kind of start to merge into each other. Stephen Brown asked, as an ADI trainer, I don't like the idea of having to travel 45 miles to another unknown town or city, taking a PDI who doesn't know the area at all, with a learner who doesn't know the area at all. How can that be fair? And then the next question from Tony kind of follows on in this sort of way. You remember Tony mentioned 3 hours earlier. He said, let me explain. He says 30 to 40 minutes to get to the test centre, about 1 hour, 20 minutes for the test, 30, 40 minutes to then get home. How many learners do you think have that much time to spare? You're asking a lot of ABIs, and I've put my business plan into action, but the DVSA keep moving the goalposts. I'm sorry, John, it's a mess. Do you not agree?
No, I don't agree. But you'd expect me to say that anyway, wouldn't you? Tony, I'm sorry that I can't tell you what you really want to hear, but really, you don't have to do anything. The bottom line is it's about thinking smartly and outside the box. You can still have the PDI come to you for your training. You're delivering quality training, but put some of the responsibility on the PDI shoulders. They need to be aware that they need to be focusing on the lesson planning, the risk management and the learning teaching strategies. They need to have an understanding of how to deliver a quality client-centered lesson bespoke to the needs of that particular individual for success on any Part 3 stroke standards check. Currently, as you know, when somebody qualifies, they have to be retrained to take the standards check, so that isn't fair either. There's no way, sadly, we as an agency are ever going to keep everyone in the ADI industry happy. DVSA will always do our best, and you probably don't believe that, but it is true. I touched on the importance of working with NASP earlier on. NASP ensure that we don't always get our own way. Not that we always try to get our own way, but NASP do certainly keep us on the straight and narrow. But this, as I say, is a whole new ball game now, because as an ADI trainer, you're going to be teaching that PDI how to instruct, how to be a successful ADI, how to be successful on a standards check, and how to be a professional going forward within the driver training industry. Totally different to what's currently happening. We will, as an agency, as I said very early on, be holding ADI trainers responsible for the quality. So I would like to think that you would also plan the part 3. So you could be, in effect, thinking about where you're going to be taking, where that PDI is going to be taking the part 3, because ideally, at least you want to be listening to the profile at the end, but ideally, it'd be brilliant if you were sat in on the test itself, so that regardless of the outcome, you could provide feedback, whether that be positive or negative. But I can't tell you what you want to hear. This is an important change. It's a big change, and the audit industry as a whole and the ADI training industry as a whole are prepared for it, and that's from the surveys that we've conducted. They've got the processes in place, and it's about making it work now collectively, and I think we're going some way to ensuring that that is the case long term.
And with Stephen, you know, Stephen was saying, Stephen Brown was saying it's not really.
Hopefully that was.
Sorry, John.
Sorry, David.
Are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, still here.
Yeah. So you know, it's just that I think with what Stephen says on here, Stephen Brown, he says it's not fair. I've got to do all that travel. Tony was saying getting 3 hours from a commitment from a learner driver.
Yeah.
It does put
from a learner driver.
That's what I've deleted the bleeding question.
Yeah. Okay. So they'll have a learner for the purpose of the part 3, but the learner driver will be having a lesson in and around the area where the PDI is familiar with. That's the key part, because the PDI has got to know the area should that learner perform completely differently on the day and they need to restructure the lesson. This is where the forward planning comes in, whereas the current part 3 is all about the examiner taking ownership of the choice of PST, the choice of role play. The PDI doesn't have the opportunity to do any EDP, explanation, demonstration or practice, doesn't have the opportunity to change the lesson plan. The current test process is completely restrictive and unrealistic. So the new process is all about what you do in reality. And we've all got to adapt, we've all got to change. And that could be quite fearful in some respects, but also I would suggest look at it positively. It's very exciting. It's something that you do differently. And actually I do know what I'm talking about, believe it or not, because I too have got to modify my techniques. I'm responsible for training examiners. All examiner training used to take place at Cardington, the College of Knowledge, as I used to call it. I was an ADI trainer for about 12 years down there. But now we're doing regional training, so we're doing Chesterton, Chatterton, we're doing Bishopsbriggs, we're doing Avonmouth, and obviously we're doing Cardington. So theoretically, I've got to learn all those areas to enable me to deliver a meaningful training session to any would-be driving examiner. So, you know, we've all got additional challenges. It's about embracing them and moving on.
I don't wish to be rude, but I've got to try and pick the speed up a little bit because I'm aware of the time, and I've got some cracking questions coming in. So
are you trying to tell me I talk too much?
I'll just ask you to be a little bit more succinct, if you could.
Yeah, of course I will. Yeah.
First of all, this is more of a statement rather than anything else. It's Gary Foster. Gary, once again, thanks for contributing tonight. We really appreciate it. And it's more of a statement. I think all the issues raised here need to be covered by the DVSA impact assessment, subsequent full and proper consultation. Following on from that, Louise Walsh, again, Lou, thanks for your contributions tonight. Lou writes, there would be uproar if ADIs had to do a standards check in Part 3 test centres only. The playing fields aren't level for PDIs. I'll let you comment on that. I'm going to flip over to Facebook now because there's some questions coming through there. So I'll let you elaborate on what Lou just said about the uproar. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I think Louise, as per usual, has got a valid point. But you know, as I said very early on, David, I've got to be honest. I've got to manage expectation. The bottom line is we haven't got the resource to deliver a Part 3 at every driving test centre. I'd like to think that the service provision going forward, once we've got the dedicated team, will improve. But I do agree with Louise. It isn't a level playing field. So there you are. You've got an honest answer, and I agree with that.
Okay, great. So some of this we might have kind of repeated, but we can be quite succinct, but I do want to answer it.
Yeah.
Julie Murphy, if a PDI has started training recently, can they choose to take either style after October?
No.
Great.
Succinct. Is that succinct?
You don't get much better than that, do you, for being succinct? Bill Wilson, he writes, John seems surprised that we'd have to take a pupil on part 3 day for 3 hours. Can you explain to him, please? I think, Bill, I think with Tony Curran's explanation, it kind of covered that. Bill Wilson continues to say, the new part 3, to be user-friendly, must, for obvious reasons, be available at all local test centres. Will this be the case? And Julie Murphy, will you have to be audit registered to give part 2 and 3 training when the new test comes in?
No.
Okay. So you just need to be audit registered to deliver the part 3?
No.
Thank you. Very succinct.
Sorry.
No, it's what we asked for. You're getting David Davis asked. Well, it isn't ask. It's I need to read it first. I've not read it yet, David, so I can't put it in my mind. So I don't know if this is going to come out. Because the examiner comes to your local test centre now to do a standard test, couldn't you just open up a part 3 test on that day when the examiner is there?
Yeah, I mean, he makes a valid point as well, similar to the one that Louise made earlier. But what you or anybody else on this call tonight doesn't understand is the complexity of test booking and the test booking system.
Operations.
It's back to the request earlier on about ADIs being able to book their own standards check and paying for an additional one should they not be happy about their grade. That's an aspiration. That will happen. But for that to happen, we need a decent IT system. The IT system that we currently have isn't doing what it says totally on the tin, but that's been worked upon. It will change. Things will improve going forward, and that's one of the aspirations. So.
Okay, cool. Well, John, I've got to say, I'm just looking at some stats. We had just a fraction over, I think it's 103, 104 people that registered for this webinar. It's been broadcast live on the Driving Instructors Business Summit page, and that has reached 407 people so far. So
wow.
A total of 500 people tonight.
Thank you, everybody.
It's a great representation of the industry. It just shows how much cares there. There's John Galloway clapping. You're dead right, mate.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Actually, to be fair, and again, I don't want anybody listening tonight reaching for a Kleenex or a sick bag, but I'm passionate about supporting the industry. I always will do. I always have done. I'll attend ADI Association meetings. I'm quite prepared to stand up and be accountable. At times, I can't always give you the answers that you want to hear, which is quite frustrating. If I had new batteries for my magic wand, I'd make everything lovely in the world of U2, but it's not going to happen. And I just thank everybody for participating and supporting and being tolerant with us, because you do have an opportunity to have an input via portals such as this tonight. I mean, David has done a sterling job of facilitating an excellent webinar, in my opinion. It's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure listening to Mr. Galloway there on camera number 3.
We'll have him on in a minute.
He's far better looking than me. But no, joking apart, you know, there's some very special people involved in the industry, and it is a real privilege to be just here tonight. So thank you.
Well, look, thank you. I mean, the invitation's always open. There's a few more questions that have come in. I can't answer them tonight. I need a cut-off point. But I'll welcome you back anytime. And I did feel throughout tonight's webinar, it went really well, but because I'm not a driver trainer, I'm not a Louise Walsh, I'm not a Graham Hooper. One of them's better looking than me.
they're both better looking than me.
I was going to say, and one of them's still online, isn't she? But maybe we can get our heads together and look for a time where maybe yourself, Graham, and Louise can have a three-way chat between you, because we've got a great platform here to
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
People. And I'm not
David, any questions that haven't been answered tonight? Because I appreciate a lot of people, you know, are probably sitting there in frustration, having submitted questions with good intent, and they haven't had the opportunity to have them aired. Send them through to me, if you wouldn't mind, and I'll respond to them. How do they do that? No, I'd ask you to do that if possible. If you've got all the questions there logged.
Oh, bloody hell!
So I'm giving you an action point from tonight's meeting, sir. You can email them.
Right, what I'll say to everybody, if you want to ask John a question, please go to the Driving Instructors Business Summit Facebook page, look for this video, and write your question underneath the thread of the video, because then we can all put them in one place, and it will also save questions being repeated as well. Right, I'm going to flip over to John Galloway, throwing something up at me. Before I do, Mr. Sheridan, you've been a belter, mate. You've been an absolute belter.
It's been a privilege.
With or without you, there's been a lot of pride.
One love.
One love.
One love. One life. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Shall we give way to Mr. John Galloway?
Absolutely, sir. Yeah.
Lovely. If you can wiggle your mouse around, John Sheridan, and click on the mute button, and if John Galloway can do the same thing and click on the unmute button, John Galloway, you got the final say tonight, mate.
Marvellous. Guys, what can I say? It's been very, very informative tonight. Very, very interesting, John Sheridan. Very interesting. And I've got to say thank you very much for your kind suggestion about being able to talk about how potentially speed of sight can be elevated. And Mr. Poole, what can I say? You are a legend.
I don't know about that.
Well, we need a platform to get our message out there, and what better way to do that? So everyone from Speed of Sight, I've got to say thank you. But more importantly, ADIs, if you haven't heard what I said before, I won't go through it all over again, but simply put, I want to leave you with this thought. Speed of Sight provide driving experiences for people who have either lost their driver's licenses because they've become disabled through life change or through the natural aging process or a devastating accident that they were unaware of. We also provide driving experiences for people who will never gain a license because of the nature of their disability. And the one thing they all have in common, they tell us how devastating the fact that they've lost their driver's license. You know what it's like because you give that gift every single day. So if you are interested in supporting our charity with just £1 every time someone passes their driving test, you will help us drive the difference for those disabled. So go to passapound.com or check out our website or look out for Mr. Poole because he is our signpost and we need more of those. So thank you very much.
Look, ADIs, thanks for being here tonight, listening to John. John Sheridan, you've been awesome. John Galloway, I got loads of love for you, mate. I just think you're brilliant. What you do to change people's life. You mentioned, I can't remember his name, was it Steve Fisher?
And Fisher, who lost his sight.
He lost his sight over a 30-day period. He was depressed, he lost his marriage. And he found you, and you gave him the opportunity of driving again, and it changed his life around. And there's no value on that. And the way ADIs can help is two ways, one of two ways. You can contact John through the Speed of Sight website, and by doing that, you can either give up some time to be a volunteer or something like that. You can come to the summit in January. It's only £17 to come to the summit. and all that money goes straight into Speed of Sight, straight to their PayPal account that they can use right now to get more people these driving experiences. And of course, it's past £1. Now, I'm personally looking for 200 driving instructors, because on average, I would say about 25 passes a year on average. I know some of you are part-time and some of you work 9 days a week. But if I can get 200 instructors, 25 passes, each doing £1, that's £5 passive income coming in each year. And you know what? It's not a lot of money, but it will give a stack of driving experiences for people. And get this badge. I want to see this past £1 with Speed of Sight. Loads of you have had the wonderful dots for Big Learner Relay. You've got a space for this on your car as well. It will mean so much for so many people. And you know what, when we help charity, and a charity that we mean and we've got some passion for, it adds serious value to our own lives. I can be a little bit brazen at times, and every now and again, when I am brazen, I take a look at Speed of Sight, and it brings me back down to where I need to be. And also, charity is a great driver for business as well. There are lots of charities in your area, and I'm working with a charity at the moment in North London to work to collaborate with a local driving school. So there's so many things that you can do to open up to get more business into your driving school by working with local charities, because as a local charity, they can only do so many midnight walks, so many parachute jumps, or what have you not. But maybe if you give them a local charity a bunch of vouchers that somebody can buy, and they can spend that money or buy that voucher from a local charity that a local charity keeps, and then you get a new learner, you know, just one lesson. You can do things like that as well. And it's a great way of bringing in business, committed people as well to your driving school. And you know, getting linked in with the likes of Mike Newman. And you know, before I go, John, Mike did very recently. You went over to Italy, didn't you? And Mike, by the way, Mike Newman is the blind driving driver. Is the world record holder for several world records. But I want to say he's also a professional racing driver, blind driver, professional racing driver who's winning races. So, John, quickly tell us what happened with Audi in Italy.
Okay. Well, first of all, for those of you that don't know Mike, his mum and dad are ADIs.
Yeah, they're down, is it Banbury or something like that?
They're down in Gloucestershire.
Gloucestershire.
And they run a school called Freeway School of Motoring.
Okay.
They've been doing that all of Mike's life. So imagine their exhilaration and excitement when their son, who was born blind, is now the fastest blind driver in the world. And more than that, he now gets paid, which comes as a donation to the charity to race cars. So on the 2nd of June this year, and if you all Google when you get the time, you Google the following: Mike Audi Trust Race. That is an Audi cars, Audi Trust Race. You will see a 2-minute commercial where
I'm putting the link up now. I'm just putting a link up.
You will make sure you get the right one, because there's 2 videos. One is with him driving, and the one is just an interview.
I've got it.
The race has achieved 8 million views since the 2nd of June. That's what Audi tell us in Italy. It's 1.2 million on the link I think our good friend David is now going to share.
Yeah, that's right. 1.2 million on this link, but overall globally, it's 8 million people have watched Mike kick ass. The other driver was blind. They made sure that he couldn't see. It was pretty much a back race, wasn't it?
Be under no mistake. What we are doing as a charity is reaching out to disabled people, letting them know there's an activity out there that they can enjoy and they will remember for the rest of their days. We're not just about driving change. We change hearts and minds for everybody involved, the participants, the family, And you know what? Us, it's remarkable. So please, 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 if you want to help us drive change around the United Kingdom, we need you. Yes, you. Please, bring it on.
You don't stop. Look, I'm just going to put a link in here right now. I've put a link in for the Audi video that you can all go and watch. But look, I want to see you. I want all driving instructors on this webinar tonight to come down here to the summit in January to meet you all. And it's 17 quid. So get your hand in your bloody pocket. Stop being tight-fisted. Spend 17 quid. It's dead cheap. You can come to the hotel the night before the premiere. It's only 50 quid. John and Mike and the rest of the team, and even me, and we might even get bloody John Sheridan to come down as well. Buying a drink.
Guys, if you only help us change one person, you've helped us change the world. So let's see you at that show.
John Sheridan, John Galloway, you've been lovely. And I'm going to leave this on one set of notes from Gary Fossey. I still haven't found what I'm looking for this Sunday, bloody Sunday, and I still feel like I'm running to stay still. Gary Fossey, you've stolen the bloody show. Good night, everyone. John Sheridan and John Galloway, I'll be in touch with you both in the week. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, John. Thanks, Dave.